Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We have another video for you in a British line. This is the Tier 9 TD, the Tortoise, or the AT39. Before that, just a gentle reminder that we have now our Discord server, so please come and join us there, and we will have a link in the description for you. Now we're going to have a look at the tech spec of the Tortoise. We will use blitzhanger.com to do that, as always. But before that, I just want to talk a little bit about this tank as you've reached Tier 9, right? So it's very similar gameplay to the tanks before, the AT15, the AT7, the AT8, the AT2, right? So the skills that you've acquired going up through those tanks will serve you well here. It's a very similar tank in how it's set up. Strong frontal armor, good gun, good rate of fire, etc. However, there is one new dimension. Because it's a Tier 9 British tank, it has HESH shells. And if you haven't played them before, they are quite different. You get very high pen, high damage. So let's have a mini tutorial on HESH shells. So I'm going to hand you over to the boffins.
HESH High Explosive Squash Head, Heat High Explosive Anti-Tank. These two rounds first saw use in World War II. For these ammo types, distance or kinetic energy are not a factor once they reach their target. HESH is a slow-speed round that uses concussive explosive energy to damage the interior of the target. HESH contains a thin casing with a plastic explosive that flattens against the target before exploding. Once the round is partially squashed, the plastic explosive ignites. The concussive energy transfers through, and pieces of the armor or equipment inside become the destructive elements. Heat contains an inverted cone-shaped charge with a metallic liner. Once the round reaches the target, it detonates, creating a molten metal hypersonic jet. This explosively formed penetrator requires standoff distance to form its maximum penetrating power. Research has shown the more angled the cone is, the more concentrated the jet becomes, increasing its force and penetration distance. Advances in technology have mitigated these effects, such as explosive reactive armor and composite armor with ceramic plates and other materials. Spaced or slat armor also reduces the effects due to causing premature detonation.
So I hope you got all that. Now back to the tank itself. So in terms of provisions, I would run improved fuel, T, and pudding and T, basically more T, but it is a British tank after all, right? So in terms of the gun setup, I would use gun rammer, supercharge, and refined gun. But calibrated shells also work very well in this tank, particularly with the HESH. So we'll have a look at that as an option too. And definitely for HESH, calibrated shells is often even a better option. I would get the top gun on this first because this tank is all about the gun and it doesn't really move anyway. So you're going to be slow regardless of what engine you have installed. Top gun's 120mm gun, has a lot of punch, and it also has a reload of 6.8 seconds, giving you 400 plus damage points. So it is a rolling monster, a rolling wall of death. Now you get 259mm of pen on AP, APCR giving you 326, going up to 272 and 342 if you use calibrated shells. Get 120mm of pen with HESH, going up to 132. But of course the reload goes up to 7 seconds then, but it's not such a huge difference, so that's why I said calibrated shells are often a better option when you've got HESH. Most velocity is 1387 meters per second for AP and HESH, going up to 70 and 34 meters per second with APCR, and if you're firing over distance, APCR is really a great option. Rate of fire is great, right? You are going to be doing, significant damage in very short amount of time in this thing. You're going to see during the gameplay, take out a Tiger 2, I think in 20 seconds or something like that, albeit with some help from allies, but it's just incredible. Gun depression is 10 degrees, 20 degrees in elevation, so it's definitely improved gun alignment from previous tanks. 20 kilometers are top speed, 10 in reserve. In reverse, power to weight ratio, as you would expect, sucks, right? It doesn't really this thing doesn't really go, right? We're gonna have a look at the mobility index in a second. G index though is 22.7, right? So that's better than the tank before, and to put that in context, that is over 10% better than a grill. So gun handling on this thing is just awesome. Its mobility index, on the other hand, or its maneuverability index, is 1.13, so basically non-existent. And we discussed this before in this entire line of tanks, right? this is one of the limitations, and it's something that you have to adapt to if you want to have a successful game or games in this tank, because it really just doesn't get around the map. Concealment numbers, if you look at something with a view range of 308 meters, it has to get within 222 meters of you when you're still. That goes up to 250, so you burn off 28 meters of concealment when you fire. But it is an improvement from tier 8. If you remember, when we looked at the AT-15, we lost a lot of concealment numbers when we moved up from tier 7. Claw some of that back now with the Tortoise, although it's still not as good as the tier 7. This tank is all about the armor, right? Front on, it is difficult to pen. It has very strong armor at the bottom here on the lower plate, strong armor around the mantlet, and of course the mantlet right in the center tank can't be penned. The cupola can be penned, of course, and it has weaker armor on the left hand side of the turret, which doesn't really make any sense really. Now if you're up tiered in this tank, you can be penned front on by heavies, right? So you need to be aware of that. But if you're top tier, you can be a bit more of a bully and push on. On the back and the sides, you are vulnerable, same as the tanks before, and what you want to avoid is having fast movers get around behind you, because with your lack of mobility, with your lack of speed, you can't get away. You may not be able to back up to protect your butt, and you're just going to die. And experienced players and mediums and light tanks will just come around behind you, and then it's game over for you. So you need to be aware of that and try to avoid that if possible. You can't, of course, do it all the time. You saw there, looking at the armor profile front on, when you're top tier, you can be a bully. When you're up tiered, you need to be more careful and play more as a support vehicle from behind, particularly from behind maybe your heavies, or traditional position at the back, sniping and dealing damage to enable your team to win. So, I won't dwell too much on the tactics of this tank, because they're exactly the same as we discussed with the previous tanks in this line. The skills are transferable. The major thing is that you need to be a bit more cautious when up tiered, because tier 10s can't pen you front on, and of course you need to be conscious of the fact that you now have HESH, because HESH is a fantastic round. It can do a lot of damage. It has that great pen. It's only on the British tanks. It's something which is unique to the British line. You would get it at tier 9 and tier 10, so you have it now with the Tortoise, so just be aware of that. Make sure you change your ammo loadout to accommodate HESH, and when you're side on or at the back of medium light tanks or even some heavies, you can pen with HESH with that 120mm plus, and it's even more if you use calibrated shells. So be aware of that. Now, in terms of this game here, I'm top tier, right? So exactly as we discussed in the tech spec, when top tier, you can afford to go front on. You can be a front on bully, because it's difficult for tier 8s, even big guns like on the T34 here, to pen you front on. And if they want to aim at a small target at the coupler, they have to spend a lot of time and more time aiming, right? And that makes them more vulnerable. On this map here, this heavy channel is ideal for something like the Tortoise or a T95 if you are top tier, because you can push on. There are a lot of confined spaces, so it makes it more difficult for lighter medium tanks to get around behind you. Your frontal armor really allows you to push on and to be protected. Just the thing about game awareness of your teammates here, if you look at my ally here, he actually blocked my angle of turning a corner, and he made me expose my side far more than I needed to do. So just be aware of that. I mean, I know now if you're watching tier 9 tank video, you probably have more experience and probably hopefully will not do that and be aware of where your allies are, but you really do kind of need to always be conscious of that, because you can really damage your allies, and of course in the end that damages you. But back to the game, you can see here, I'm going to clear off this tiger, and of course we had some help from our allies, but this is like 20, I think overall it's like 23 seconds or something like that this tiger just gets pummeled. And this is, you drop adrenaline in this tank, and it just is an unbelievable DPM machine. Just pummels the enemy, and when you're going straight on to them, there isn't really much they can do. That sequence of play here shows you how vulnerable you are from the sides, tuck around there from the AMX. But I want to show you the gun handling in action here. Look at this. Eye needle stuff, limited aiming time, and that's that 22.7 gun index in action there. And this tank, it really does have great gun handling. Again, you see the difference between being front on and side on. Front on, the AMX bounced me, couldn't pen me, but when I was side on, an easy pen from. And that's really, in a nutshell, what this tank is about. Again, we see the beautiful gun handling in action there, and delivers time and time again. Now here's the danger, right? Being caught out in the open, and this is really exposed area for me too. I tried to track him at the back when he was coming over, missed, and had my ally not taken him out there, I would have been in real trouble there, because I'm too far away from cover to back into it. But thankfully at that point in the game, we were able to get assistance from allies. You saw there the APC, or the good gun handling, punched straight through the turret of the Pershing. The Pershing, like all those American tanks, is a hull down tank, and he would expect that when only his turret is showing, he's going to get a bounce. But when I upload to APCR, you saw there the gun system in this tank is excellent, just punches right through his turret. And now I'm just going to roll up on him, and I don't really care now at this point if he pens me or not, because I'm going to out DPM him. I know that I'm close to probably a mastery badge in this game, so I'm just going for it, see if I can get some more damage onto him. Fluff that shot. But I'm just going to try to capture the base now. He's trying to rabbit and put another round into him, and again you see the DPM in action there. This is just a DPM monster, and when you're coming front onto a tank, which is the same tier or lower tier, it's extremely intimidating. You see there almost 5.5k damage, so big damage game, and this is what the Tortoise can do. Whether or not you are pushing on, as I did there because I was top tier, or if I was bottom tier in that game, I probably would have sat at the back more, allowed my frontline heavies, my tier 10 heavies, to move on towards C and try to farm some damage from the back and conserve my hit points. But whether you're doing that, it doesn't really matter, because this tank with its DPM really allows you to just farm damage, whether frontline or whether supporting from the back. It has different play styles, and I would adapt the play style of this tank according to whether you're top tier or up tier, because it handles very differently. The big difference is being able to be penned front on when you are bottom tier. So many tier 10 heavies are going to pen you when you're front on without a problem. But of course, if you're top tier, then it's much more difficult, so you can be much more aggressive and much more tip of the spear front line in this tank. So overall, I think that was a good example of this tank in action, particularly when it is top tier, playing to its strengths, being aggressive, pushing on, seizing strategic points on the map, using that DPM and that strong armor to intimidate, push the enemy back. We didn't let the enemy get near C, pushed them back, then pushed him around the map, pushed onto the Tiger, cleared him off, and able to clear off a few other tanks along the way, and using just basically that DPM, the frontal armor, to intimidate the enemy and to push them out of their comfort zone, because this tank moving on to you when it's front on is extremely intimidating, especially if you are at the same or lower tier. So let's have a recap on the key points of this tier 9 British TD. So, like the tanks before, it's a slow moving wall of death, right? We described it before as like a Roman legion, just coming towards you, stab, kill, stab. It's a binary tank, exactly like the tanks before. It can be hit or miss. If you take the wrong channel in this tank at the start, the game can pass you by because you're so slow. There's improved concealment and a better gun system over the previous tank, which is good. So we clawed back some of that lost concealment between tier 7 and tier 8. Rate of fire is troll. I mean, in 20 seconds plus you can take out most tier 8 tanks, and that is really intimidating. It has a great gun system. It's accurate. It has good pen. We looked at the M index, the G index. The M index itself is, I mean, it's nothing, right? The mobility is non-existent, so you have limited map engagement, as with all of the tanks before. So therefore, you need to choose your opening carefully. Setup analysis is key. If you choose the wrong channel, the game can pass you by. You can end up doing 0 damage. So your opening gambit, just like chess, is key to playing this tank well. What you do in the first 10 or 15 seconds normally dictates the game, because you don't have a chance to rectify that due to the lack of mobility. The gun handling, though, as we discussed, is just awesome. That 22.7 G index is just amazing. And then you add in the HESH, it's just a monster of a gun system. And of course, you should play to that strength. So thanks for watching. Cheers, Mush. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. And I guess all that remains for me to say is pants off.